these things in many different places throughout the application. So as opposed to having to, create, instead of having to put this DOM structure in every single place in my application that I want to use it, I just have one simple little tag, and I'm creating reusable components. And that's one of the best things about directives, is that they're reusable and they're compact, and they're, you can pass in different variables to them. Here on the sides, I have this file uploader here, and I also have this file uploader here, and both of them work the same, but they're bound to different models. So the left side is bound to, creative skin left image, and this one's bound to creative skin right image. So you can reuse your components all over the place, pass in different attribute values, and then they sort of change what they control. So I'll save that. That's it. And that's it. Anybody have any questions? Everybody understand directives? Ready to go bang some out?
It's like the upload directive saves so much work.
Yeah.
What's that?
The uploader directive saves so much work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, here's the side resizing one I was telling you about.
That looks like fun, actually.
So this, I'm actually observing all of these different attributes here, because I need to, if you change anything on that particular page, it has to recalculate the sizing of everything. So I have a lot of listeners on this one. This is just basic, JavaScript math stuff.
What did you find it to?
What's that?
What triggers the reset size?
Reset size is triggered by these, observing these attribute changes. So for instance, if I crashed my notes server.
Don't you have that command you told me? Keep it running when it crashes?
Yeah, but I wasn't running that. Okay, so kind of touching on what you were talking about earlier, I had a cookie set in my browser, and I'm actually not launching Angular the normal way, where you just sort of include it in the page and then write your controller. I'm actually bootstrapping it from the main index file. Okay. So what I'm doing is, this might be interesting to some people, I'll show you. This is actually how I invoke Angular. I say, this is sort of like document, or a jQuery document ready, but instead it's Angular element document ready. And then I run a quick ping to my API using jQuery's get function. Mm-hmm. And I check to see if the person's logged in or not. And then I bootstrap my Angular application and basically fire everything up. That way I know before Angular starts whether or not they're logged in, and I basically set that value when it starts up.
Yeah, I thought you were going to load the entire app and be with that.
Oh, no. No. So, what was I going to show you?
So the login portion isn't in Angular then?
No, yes, it is.
It's just the other pages are loaded once the user's logged in.
Yeah, that's like for a returning user. If you have the cookie set, it checks your cookie, pings the API, and relogs you back in if you have a valid session, and then it bootstraps the application. But if you don't even have a cookie, then it just loads up the login page. That was kind of one of the more complicated things that figuring out this whole bootstrapping process. When you get home, Google Angular bootstrapping, and you'll see all sorts of different ways that you can do it, and things that you can do with it, why you'd want to do it that way.
a technique to get rid of the flash when it's loading data.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's read Ben Nadal's blog. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Ben Nadal or Ben Nadal. He has a really good tutorial about basically subviews. And rather than in your router, rather than passing in what your controller and your view is going to be using an ng view directive, he just passes an action, and then you have this route listener that says what is the action, and then passes around the route attributes, and then passes those on to your controllers. And your controller says, I want to listen for this particular action only. So in this app here, this section of the app only listens for is the creative action. And then the rest of these things are basically route parameters. So this is my sub action, my creative ID, and the section that I want to edit. So definitely check out his blog post on that. But he wrote these classes that allow you to manage better your views. And it looks like this, and this is the main index page of the app. And what it's doing, it's using an ng switch rather than an ng view. Subview is the value of this here. So in this app right now, there's only two. There's basically creatives and there's users. And by default, in my app controller, I'm setting the subview to loading. So by default, all you see is this groovy little spinner here. Actually, it went so fast. We saw the beginning, the loading app. So nothing else is even loaded because I'm using ng includes for everything. So this stuff here doesn't even get loaded until one of these particular actions shows up. So it sort of helps eliminate that flicker effect that you're
Yeah,
talking
it's a
about.
good strategy.
Yeah.
Can you spell out his name?
Yeah, it's actually I have it in my. I think it's BENNADAL.
Oh,
There's not a whole lot of people that are writing really good tutorials and more advanced tutorials on Angular so far that I've found, but he is definitely one of the best, I think. Let's see, I have it here. Yeah, okay, yeah, BENNADEL.com. Check him out, and then also check out egghead.io. You were talking about that earlier. Some really good video tutorials. The guy goes through, does like screen sharing basically of his code. And, he has some really good stuff on there as well. That's actually, I probably learned the most from him out of anybody so far. Some of the more advanced stuff, I like Ben's blog. You can tell like he's really using it in real world, super complicated type of applications. So he has some really good wisdom on there. So that's all I got. Anybody have any more questions?
Have you learned any new debugging techniques, like with Angular, that have helped? Because it's obviously written very differently.
I haven't.
Like
Actually, Todd told me about a Batarang for Angular. I don't have it installed on here.
What's
Yeah.
it called again?
Batarang works pretty good.
Batarang?
Just Chrome and just download and install it.
Yeah.
It lets you see your scope and what is associated with each scope.
Nice.
And you can kind of drill down, all the different layers and get really kind of deep dive down into it. Because I know the errors that Angular spits out, a lot of times you're just like, what is that? I don't know. I have no idea what that is. But Batarang helps out with that.
Cool.
So this example that you're writing here, this is all in one controller, right? Is that
Which ones?
just what you're showing here? This is all
No. There's nested controllers. There's an app controller,
right.
which basically the primary function of app controller is to say, is the person logged in or not? If not, spit them out to the login page and manage this sub view right here, which changes my view. every single one of these views has its own controller associated with it. So let's say I have, let's use the, I'll get really deep dive here. Creative is the actual page that I was showing you where you typing in the colors and the sizes and everything. That's this page right here. So it has its own controller, a creative controller, and then it actually has a switch on it to change subviews down inside of that. So if I'm adding a new creative, I'm going to include this particular file, which is this, which uses the same controller. It uses the creative controller. I'm closing the page. It uses the creative controller because it's included here and it's still inside of here. I could have put another controller around this to isolate this functionality here to be, I could do like a creative add controller or something like that.
And is that just to avoid sort of like name spacing problems, or is it for?
It's more of I think it's more of a application design thing. It's like,
Right.
where do you want to have all your functionality?
You essentially have like different pages, really, and you have a
Right.
controller for each page, right?
Pretty much. That's usually how I do it.
Yeah. I guess I'm
You
sort of
know, you
wondering
can
about.
have you can put controllers wherever you want to.
Right, I'm wondering just about sort of performance and what sort of happens when you have like, imagine you have a whole bunch of panels in one view. Would you want to make distinct controllers for them, or is it?
I mean, it depends.
If you
Like,
know the information
if
needs
you
to be
want,
shared.
if the information needs to be shared, then you should put it probably inside of one controller.
Yeah.
If
We
it's
have, for example, pages
isolated.
when we have different groupings of fields and so on. That's what we did Untitled Chapter, for example, a list of users, or you have some company settings, etc. And we usually have one controller for each one because these each are not related.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it doesn't make sense to store user data inside of a stock data thing.
Right, the
So-
validation typically is related to users or company settings or whatever. So
Oh, so you're saying like on a form you would have two different controllers that work together?
it typically has to not working together, but it typically has to do with what data they're connected to. Right?
Okay.
You can have a dialogue with some parties as well, right? Connected to one controller.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah,
if
so
you
it's
need
really-
to have data being sent from one controller to another one, there's different ways of doing that. So.
Right. Yeah, so really it just kind of depends on how big you want your controllers to be, how isolated you want them to be, how specific to their particular task you want them to be. I think the more specific to a particular task it is, the better it is, because it's easier to debug, it's easier to know what's going on, it's easier to look at the code. You don't want to be talking about users inside of your creative controller. It just doesn't really make much sense. And, like you were saying, if you want two controllers to talk to each other, you can do that through events, or you can do that through a service, which again is a singleton, and then you can share information to each other. As long as you inject that service into both controllers, they can sort of use that as an intermediary to talk to each other. But yeah, I mean, this thing, it gets nested deep. There's a whole bunch of different views in here, different things that get included based on different conditions. ng switch is a lot like, this is like a switch in JavaScript, switch a case. So you can do different things with that. This is a directive, here's another directive. These are just all built-in directives that Angular comes with right out of the bat. And if you want to go look at the source code of Angular, you can actually, check this stuff out and see how the big boys do it. See how it's done for real. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.